Thanks,
Good
Beth.
morning. I see some familiar faces, some new faces, right? So let's go around a minute and tell me if you were here last time, as well as how to pronounce your name. So Rama, you want to call on people and we'll get it because.
Sure. Indu?
I wasn't here last time. I am Indu. I am from Madurai, and I have a 6-year-old son. And actually, I watched your recording last time, so I kind of have an idea as to what was spoken last time.
Great. That was going to be my next question. And how old is your son?
6 years.
16. My reception is breaking up a little, so I may have to ask quite a few repeats. I'm hearing parts of words and then another part.
Not 16,
well, welcome.
6.
Oh, 6, not 16.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's quite different.
Manju?
Long way between those.
Manju, the dog lover's mom.
Yes, hello, I'm Manju. And my daughter is, I'm not very camera ready right now because it's night. So don't want to show my face. I'll show my face. I was just joking. I'm looking like this. So I don't want to show.
Wait a minute, that's really fun.
So, I don't want to make you laugh, so I'm not going to show.
Laughter is important medicine.
Sorry?
Laughter is important medicine. I think you should contribute.
So my daughter is 8 years old and I'm homeschooling her right now. So I've been doing everything at home. I mean, due to lack of help from others, kind of therapist and all, I couldn't find anyone here. So I took it all on my own and I kept on doing it. And here she is, she's doing well. And I'm very happy with homeschooling, the decision of homeschooling.
That's great. And
So,
did you hear the last recording or were you here last time?
yes, I did.
Okay.
I was there. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Thank you.
Veena?
Yeah. Hello. I am Veena. I am from Mumbai. My son is 15 years old. Recently, even I have started homeschooling him. Like after COVID, I didn't send him to school. I teach him at home only. I take academics as well as I do all household activities along with him. I do craft and drawing and coloring, everything a little bit because he doesn't have that much of patience to do things at a long stretch. So I see his mood and accordingly I plan. Like today I'll take his ball play or I'll take him out. So all these things I'm doing with him throughout the day.
And you were here last time, right?
Yes, I was here.
Because you look very familiar. And I think last time you talked about how you found doing little pieces really helped.
Yeah.
Great.
Bharti?
Hi, Beth. Yeah, I was here last time.
Yeah.
And so I'm here again. I'm driving, so I'm not driving. I'm being driven, but I can hear you well. So.
Great. And can you remind me how old your child is?
So my son is 22. His name is Anand.
Okay.
And I think we spoke last time about in depth on how to handle my own overwhelm or anxiety and all that. So yes, I look forward to this session too.
Great.
Sirisha?
Hi, Beth. Sirisha here.
And you were here last time.
That's right. Yeah, we spoke about anxiety too. And my son is Akhil and he's 15 years old. Looking forward for more insights today in today's session.
Neeta?
Yeah, hi, I'm Anita. Thank you so much, Rama ma'am and Beth, for organizing all this interesting and fully information loaded webinars for all of us. My daughter is 11 and I'm also homeschooling her. So I'm looking forward to learning a lot from all of you seniors and all inspirational women for me I've learned a lot actually from all the, many of the webinars that I've attended, and a few others, I always keep watching them over and over to learn a lot of things. Thank you so much. A lot of gratitude from me. Thank you so much, Beth and Rama ma'am.
You're welcome. And did you get to see the recording from last time?
Yes, yes.
Great. Okay. I'd just like to
Yes,
know where
I
we're
did.
starting in here. Yeah, good.
I think I saw another name. Wait, Tuhina?
Yeah.
Tuhina?
Hello. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Hi.
Uh-oh, you hit mute. You're back.
Okay. Yeah, actually my son is 6.5 years old with ADHD, and there is a lot of compliance issues, a lot of problem like homework he's not doing, and a lot of complaints from school.
Okay, great. So anybody who has a good enough connection, if you can leave your picture on, it's very hard to talk to a bunch of black boxes. It's nice to see people. So if your connection allows you to be seen, please come on back on. That would be your support for me. Great. That helps a lot. So good morning. And it sounds like, Tuhina, I didn't hear if you had heard the recording. Did you?
Yeah, I didn't hear. No, I didn't hear the recording.
No?
No.
Okay, so I just want to know how much to recap. So we'll do a little bit of a recap, a retelling from last time, and then move forward to some more practical parts. There is a possibility that one more person from the States will be popping in. One of the people who's been doing the Enki training for a while, also, she's a grandmother who's been raising her autistic grandson. So I thought she would have a lot to contribute. She didn't know if she'd be able to make it, but she's going to try. So if Jill pops in, don't be surprised. That's who it is. And she have a lot to offer over time anyway. So I just want to kind of run back through very quickly the basic principles we're working with so we can spring off with a shared ground. So first, most important is that in Enki, we always hold that each of us has an inner vitality or an inner sun that is our life force and who we are, and nothing changes that. And it doesn't matter where you fit on the spectrum of autism or anything else in life. That's just what it is to be alive. And really not just human, our dogs are a pretty good example. Just to be alive is to have that inner sun. And it's not dependent on how we're behaving or what we're doing or anything else. It's just there. So the image I hold true in myself, we have our outside sun, our sun in the sky, no matter how cloudy it is. And even if there was a massive explosion and you didn't see it for months, the sun would be unchanged. So we hold, one of the things we work a lot with on the teachers on is not to confuse behavior or accomplishment with that inner sun, that those things happen on two different planes. And our job is to help the children access that sun, access their connection to that sun. From there, they will bloom to their fullest, and their fullest is going to look different for everybody. So part of what we talked about, what's the job of a parent if we're trying to access this sun or help the children, both access ourselves and help the children. So one of the key principles in Enki is this, what we call co-emergence, holding simultaneously this total love and acceptance for the child as they are, whatever their struggles, whatever their accomplishments, just accepting that. And on the other hand, supporting them to go as far as they possibly can in who they are. So it isn't either or. And here in the States, there's been a big struggle of people feeling that their children on the spectrum were rejected. So in order to accept them, they want to do nothing, just have them be who they are. Kind of like the old free school days. That's where I came into education. Just let them do whatever, be whatever. And the opposite side is people just trying to control them. So we're trying to support them and accept them at the same time. So that's kind of the underlying picture. Often people have trouble holding two kind of opposite things simultaneously, but I think without that, you're sunk. So, so that is definitely core for us. We talked a bunch last time about that acceptance starts with your own state of mind, your own state of heart. Just being able to be there and know, you know, especially with children on the spectrum who are at the more severe functional end, this may be what my child's life is, and let me hold and embrace that. And let me also support going as far as they can. And I actually think here, Rama's a wonderful example. I can tell you that if I had asked her, 13 years ago when we started, if I had said to her, will Ananth wind up as a fantastic dancer of classical dance? She would have laughed. She'd have sent me off the phone laughing. Don't you think, Rama? And she just supported him being who he is, how far he could go. And now here his path is something you could just not have dreamt of back then. So we don't know where they'll go or what their gifts will be. And one of the examples that I give, it's on a slightly different plane, but I'm dyslexic. And if people had said, will I wind up being a writer who does all these gazillion pages of books? No. And more importantly, I think I wouldn't have developed Enki if I didn't have to struggle with what are the other ways you could come at this, because the standard way doesn't work for me. And I can remember being in 5th grade and the teacher writing all this math on the board, and she just kept chattering. And it was like being tortured. And I can remember sitting there thinking, when I'm a teacher, I'm going to just be quiet. I felt like if she would just stop talking, I could find my own way through it, but I could not follow her way. So we never know what's going to come out of the gifts they bring. We hold, in Enki, we hold that always. The unknown, we don't know what this beautiful child is bringing. And maybe what they're bringing is, I can be here in the world in appreciation. In the world we live in today, that's a huge gift. Just imagine if we had millions of people whose gift was to be in appreciation. We'd be having a very different world. So we're going to be holding both of those things. The piece we talked about last time that I want to go into more specifics on, what is it that blocks the children's access to that inner sun, however it might show? What blocks that? What gets them in a knot and resisting or throwing things or angry or withdrawn? What is it that makes that happen? And basically, this is a very simple question to answer. Basically, it's fear. But fear comes in 1,000 forms from 1,000 directions. But underlying all of it, they have gone into not feeling safe. And then we've kicked the fight or flight process into gear. And we talked last time a little bit, I'm quite sure we talked about this, but you'll remind me if we didn't, about the fact that we have this fight or flight is one end, the high end. And when that goes too far, we go into the low end, the disconnect, fall asleep, glaze over. We talked about that, right? Yeah. And that there's a third, they now believe there is a third channel, we'll call it, called the, so here we get into a little confusion. I call it the connected engagement doorway. Technically, it's called the social engagement doorway. It's the polyvagal system is the sympathetic, the parasympathetic, and the social engagement. But I think of all people, you all understand that social engagement is not always stabilizing for children or adults. Often the social kicks that fear in. So we don't call it the social engagement in Enki, we call it the connected engagement. What is it that connects them to the part that isn't going like this, but is going like this and can really self-regulate? So that's what we're going to mostly look at today. How do we both help ourselves and help the children to find that regulation so they can be who they are, be themselves to the fullest, not living in fear, overwhelm, all of the things that go with that. So before we go into more details on that, any question on the principles that I raised or thoughts?
I just had a couple of comments, Beth, because Anant is 24. So sort of looking back, I've actually been thinking about the Enki years quite a bit recently, because with COVID and, he was doing very well, but with all the things that have happened, and we have a grandson and a lot of travel and a lot of disruption. So he's been going through a lot of stress. And so I've been thinking back about the Enki and how regulated he was in those years. And it was something that, I still look back to it and say, oh, coloring really grounded him, or and so we still look back to those early years sometimes and pull in things even today. So just comment on that, because those who have younger children might want to consider that things like Enki actually give you a toolkit for future as well.
And I think really for all of us, I find for myself, when I hit that dysregulated place, I look for what are the things that help me come back. I keep using this. What helps me come back? A walk outside, artwork, music and dance are huge. I can tell you that I never say to myself, what helps me ground and regulate? Oh, I think math practice will do it. I have never in my life found math practice does it. Sometimes reading a story will do it. So finding those things, and I'm glad you brought that up, Rama, because for all of the children, what we're doing in childhood, no matter what their challenge or gift is, we're trying to anchor them so that we look at it as setting the compass. So we're trying to make it so that true north on their compass is that sense of well-being, and they know how to get there. So my middle child, who's now 40 something, I've lost track of my children. They get old and I don't care. I know my grandchildren's ages, but I know this one was my middle. My middle son had a lot of sensory integration problems. And if had he gone through standard stuff, they'd have said he was ADHD. We didn't go through that because I take a different route. But all his life, we were planting these rhythms and art and what it is to be alone, to be able to self-nourish. And you saw very little response until he hit 13. And at 13, he started to carry it himself. And you can see him now in his 40s, when he feels overwhelmed, he knows he needs to be alone and outside. Not with people, but alone and outside. And he'll go and reground, and then he can come back and deal with life. So these seeds that we plant, these are, do you guys know what sequoia trees are? I don't think you have them over there. Oh, for you, it would be the, what is the Bodhi tree actually called? Slow growing, huge trees, right? They start with this tiny seed, and it takes a long time. But what's happening is those strong roots are coming up. So I think part of what Rama's pointing to is you may be sitting there thinking, oh, he's just coloring again. What seed is being planted to help him know how to return to his ground or her ground? And really, that's the job for all of us. It's just more obvious in with your children because they're farther, more easily thrown into the fear and overwhelm. I'm going to just take a slight veer here because I want to be sure this is clear. There's the overwhelm from outside, but part of what I believe is happening for children on the spectrum is that a lot of that overwhelm's coming from inside, from the way what they were born with. So whether it's a sensory integration issue, an allergen issue, a neurological issue, it doesn't really matter. From inside, they're getting the message, where am I? I'm not safe. How do I do this? And what people are seeing as bad behavior is really more of an internal panic or terror. How can we help them find the doorways to come through that? And it's especially hard in a world where people see behavior. We live in a world that is so confused about behavior and value. And they think behavior and value are somehow tied together. It's just boggles my mind. I don't know why I can't get over that one. So they don't see, oh, that's an expression of fear. And I can tell you, this is probably something you're seeing less, but very common for teachers in neurotypical classrooms. They see the little girls acting so perfect. And I have a really hard time getting across to them, that is a behavior of fear. It doesn't matter what it looks like. If they have to be perfect all the time, that's a behavior of fear. So in Enki, we put a lot of focus on, it doesn't matter how it's showing. Beneath that, is that a behavior of I'm here, whoever I am, or is that a behavior of I'm scared? Yeah. So that brings us to, how do we support the children coming out of the fear and into the feeling of solidity, stability? I think the very first thing before any other method is for you to be holding the question that I found the nonviolent communication people articulate this best. Are you all familiar with nonviolent communication, that system? Well, I have to say I'm not fond of the system because it's all intellectual, but the underpinnings are, I think, wonderful. And what they say is there is no negative behavior, none, zero, for any age, any time. All of it is an expression of an unmet need. And when we can see our own behavior, we count our own behavior and the child's behavior that is unpleasant and say, okay, what is the unmet need? It flips the whole thing. Suddenly we're here to be together about the needs, which does include ourselves. So we're here to join in perceiving and meeting the needs, not controlling the behavior. The behavior is going to be an expression of the need is met. Rami, you look like you want to say something there. You're muted. There you go. Say it again.
Manju had a question, I think. There's a raised hand, I see.
No, I'm sorry, I did not have any question. I just wanted to agree with you with the whole heart, because this is something I felt when my daughter got diagnosed with autism. I felt it inside, and that was the reason I had to stop all the therapies, because that was where they were not able to see all it. I mean, what all you mentioned about fear, the other person was not able to see that, which I was able to see. And I had to go against everything and take that decision to do it all myself at home. I mean, I learned play therapy. So I followed all the play therapy principles after that. And in play therapy, this is very, very, I mean, it is given a lot of importance, the unmet needs and the behavior which turns up due to the unmet needs. it gives a lot of importance to that. And I feel like very connected, and I can totally, agree. And it also, the way you said that, I feel angry about it. I feel that anger about it, that it has not been understood properly. I feel the same. I feel the same. And I keep telling whoever I meet, the parents, I do trainings, and I keep telling this again and again, that it's not because they are not quiet because they are very compliant. They are quiet because they are so scared. And some children, their parents, they understood and they gave this feedback that the child stopped talking also because of fear. The fear was so much that you might have heard about
Yeah.
going completely mute in autism. So they were going into that stage, and the parent realized very late. So I have heard 2 to 3 parents telling me the same thing. Because of fear, their child went into mute, and they were not even expressing. They were saying 1-2 words, that also stopped because of the fear. Thank you so much. I couldn't control myself. I wanted to share.
Oh, please, I'm glad. Interrupt anytime. Please interrupt anytime. However, I don't register the computer hand. Use your real hand, because I'm not paying any attention to all that computer stuff. So give me real hands. I'm old. I don't know computer hands. And this is a problem in absolutely children on the spectrum. It's just a huge problem with all children that people believe behavior. This is a side story, but just so you understand, it's happening everywhere. There are preschools, so for the really little ones in the United States, and this, I've heard about this in more than one. I saw it in one. I thought I would die. The child is a little child. He's 3, maybe 4. He's terrified when his mom leaves. He's crying hysterically. The teacher says, you have to go, you have to go. The child cries hysterically until he throws up. That's how bad he is. Then he's completely calm. All the endorphins have come. He's disconnected. He's completely in that freeze mode. And they tell the parents how wonderful it is and how well he's adjusting. I thought I would die. But this is how people are looking at it. If you can get them to shut down, that is acceptable. That is not acceptable. That full of life, however it shows, full of life. So I actually, as a teacher too, I think the ones who are still fighting and misbehaving are in better shape than the ones who have shut down. So give me a fighter. Let's get in there and find what you need. So that brings us back, the phrase from the nonviolent communication people that I just love is, all negative behavior, no matter how it shows, is an expression of an unmet need. So we're holding that and asking, what is that unmet need? Ground zero for us as humans, and we talked about this last time, so we won't go into great depth, is rhythm. So rhythm is not about clocks. It's not about 9. Let's get out the door. We got to be sure you got that. Rhythm is the same as in nature. There's a set sequence of events. Sometimes, so take right now, it's spring, day is much longer, but we never go from morning up to midday back to dawn. We're always going to have dawn, midday, evening, night, back around. Always going to have that sequence. We all depend on it. Same with our heartbeat. A healthy heart is always going to have that triple bump, 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 yeah. When you're running, it's still going to be doing the same thing faster. When you're sleeping, it's going to be doing the same thing slower. So we're not looking for a clock. A clock will make you crazy. We're looking for a sequence of activities, sequence of engagements that the child comes to know and can really depend on. That's his ground. So what happens within that? See, I want to get not specific, but not too specific. So let's say you have a morning ritual. Your child gets out of bed. He always does this. He always does that. And this day, he's going to do the steady, whatever your schooling content is. Maybe you're going for a walk first or dancing around the house and then doing a little bit with the book and then, or stories or whatever, onto the art. And now it's lunchtime. All the part from now it's time for the activity block to now it's lunchtime. What happens in there, once a base is established, that can be flexible. So now Rama has to go to England to see her grandchild, and I'm a grandmother, so I know that is not an option. She has to go to see her grandchild. So now they're getting on a plane, they're doing all these things. But if the opening of the day and the punctuation marks is what we call them, the lunch, the rest, the dinner, if those things stay very stable and are demarcated with a ritual, then the child will let that be his steady rock. So as much as possible, you want to create a world in which, yeah, every day is pretty much the same, especially for kids on the spectrum, so they can relax in that. But at least as important, and you all know this better than I do, for children on the spectrum, they're going to cling to the order because that internal stability is hard to access. For them, more than anybody, helping them learn the safety of flexibility really matters. Otherwise, you're going to wind up in a prison. Everybody with me on that one? Yeah?
Yes.
Great.
Yes, totally.
So one of the things we want to do is really pay attention to the transitions. So he woke up, you had your stuff. What is demarcating that we're going to breakfast? Is it a song? Is it always put your vest on last? Is it putting mats down at the table? Is it lighting a candle? It doesn't matter what it is. It matters that something demarcates, now we're having breakfast. And then something demarcates, we're going to activity. Something marks that we're going to lunch. So now we're going to take Ananth a little bit younger. So we're going to take a younger Ananth on a trip to his brother's wedding. I'm making it up. He knows what happens when he gets up. He knows what happens at breakfast. He knows, okay, this ritual means we're doing an activity, but today that activity is going to the airport, not working in his book. Those transition rituals will make the difference of day and night in your life being flexible. Let's just take a minute there. And Rama, you want to talk about it, or any questions from people?
I just want to mention, I've never really had, because people talk about daily routine and visual schedule, things like of that nature. I've never actually had a visual schedule for Anand. It's we've been big on a few big things. He has to have his morning walk. He's been sick for the last week. Nothing else is going on, but he'll get up in the morning and go for his walk. That's what he's going to do. So that really grounds him, just going on that walk. And then things change. So he had his coding class in India in the afternoon, but because of the time change, now the coding class is in the morning, but that's fine. He still has his walk and then plug something else in and he can switch it. So those things become easier when he has a few things that are really,
So for Ananth, the walk is both the walk is both in and of itself grounding because of the physical neurological parts, but it's also grounding because it's a ritual. So he knows, I got to start here. Then fine, the day can do whatever it wants. I got to start here. Now, when they're younger, you need more than the one ritual. They can't hold it that long, but they generally can hold a wake up ritual or getting to breakfast ritual, a lunch ritual, an afternoon, a go to bed. So you have to have enough punctuation marks. And the more they can be tied to an actual, either a physical ritual like a walk or a song, or some children are irritated by song. It could be a verse. It could be just lighting a candle. It can be tiny, but those rituals become, so I'm sure you all have seen this. It shows especially strongly in children on the spectrum, again, true for all children. When they're not sure about that base, they become control freaks. Everything has to be their way. All they're telling you is, I don't know where I am, but they try to control everything to feel safe. If you can get your rituals really stable, then they cling to the ritual rather than every little detail in between. Is that making sense to people? Let's hear from you guys.
Beth,
Yeah.
could you just repeat it again? I just missed the last sentence.
Sure.
Just repeat.
But I'll repeat it as a block there. When we see children, whether they're on the spectrum or not, and adults, I'm sure you have seen this and even experienced it. When we don't feel in control inside, we seek to control outside. So you see it in kids on the spectrum in big time, trying to control every little thing, as though that can make them safe. If we instead can give them really strong rhythmic rituals, so sequence of the day is stable, and you have a ritual marking each major change, then that becomes their ground, and they can be flexible in between. Sarisha, did I say your name right, Sarisha? Yeah. It looks like you have a question there.
No, I understood now.
Okay.
Point
great.
that I missed, I got it. Thank you.
So a stable rhythm, but remember, we're talking sequence. We're not talking clocks, and we're not talking content. So a sequence would be getting up, having breakfast, activity block. Activity block can shift what the content is. If they're stable, then again, some kind of ritual to get to lunch. So activity block's going to include some kind of movement because they have to get in their bodies, some kind of mental stretching, and some kind of artistic relaxation. Or it's going to include a trip to the airport to get to your, what would that be? Your nephew, that would be his nephew, right? Or is it a niece? Nephew? To get to your nephew. But even with that, so say we take, I'm using Anant because we just have this situation here. Maybe he takes crayons on the plane because coloring is grounding for him. Maybe he takes earphones so he can hear music because music is grounding. So you find those same things that you had at home as a focused learning now are stability, nourishment.
I have another example there too. He likes to set the table. I just want to give another example. He likes to set the table. And I'm now thinking that maybe that's another grounding thing for him. So right after he finishes his coding class, he'll hurry in and start, putting the plates. And so regardless of whether it's in our house or his brother's house, it gives him again, sort of a ritual, I think. So it's something we taught when he was younger, but now it's become something.
And he really took it. You taught it as a skill. He took it on as a ritual. He's wiser.
Yes.
So that's a great example, though. Setting the table can be a ritual. Anything that marks the transition. But people tend to ignore transitions and think the doing is what matters. The transition is where you ground and empower, and it allows everything else to flow far more smoothly and flexibly. So now let's look at content. I guess I should ask first, are there any questions about the place of rhythm and the place of transitions? Everybody's good?
Beth, I have a question.
Good.
Okay, for Akhil, anything that is done in a day becomes a routine for the next day. So it has to happen that way. Otherwise, he doesn't like it. So how do I bring in that variation in his, daily schedule, just to, what do I say, experience that there's something else other than this that he would want to explore?
So really, you gave the answer in your introduction. Tiny, tiny pieces. So don't, and I should have said this first, don't ever try to change everything at once. He wants everything the same this day, this day, this day, this day, this day, because he's not finding that stable rhythm in himself. So this also comes back to something Rama just referenced, which is the drawing up the chart. For a child like him, I would draw up the chart. So pictures, but don't show what's going, wish I had one here. If you picture your chart and all that's permanent on the chart is get up, eat breakfast, activity, lunch, break, activity, just huge pieces are permanent. And then you have a bunch of little cards. You put a pocket, you know how to make a pocket, glued on 3 sides and 1 side's open. You have a bunch of small cards with the different things that could happen. And the night before you build what's tomorrow with these cards. So he sees it, he's part of, he puts them in. But at first, when you have a child who's afraid of any change, at first you would make no change. Every single day would be the same for a few weeks, for a month, and they get used to, I know that card, I know that card, I know that, and now we read it through and tomorrow we do it. And then you change just one what's in the activity, not the blocks, but what's inside. And a little at a time, you build 2. And pretty soon his focus will start going out here to what are the big blocks, not to what the little ones are. But you have to go really, really slowly. And it sounds like you're very aware of that. Does that make sense? So, instead of just writing activity, make it pretty and big so he gets focused on the big swell. The other thing is, we didn't talk about this, but the process of sleep is very important. And if a child is holding fear of the next day, what's going to happen? That disturbs the sleep and it disturbs the waking. So I would do the day the night before and let him sleep with a solid sense of what's coming. If change has to happen the next day, be sure you name it so he has some way to hold on to. I'm not just in an amorphous, this changed. I see your head going both directions. Want to unmute?
No, I got it. Thank you.
So does that feel like it can help?
Yes, it can.
So we want to support them in as many ways as we can to finding the rhythm, but we also want it to become internalized. So for instance, Ananth gets up and goes for a walk without anybody telling him anything. He's internalized where that is. And that's what we're shooting for with all children. It just takes more when they're on the spectrum because they're thrown off easier. They're thrown into the place where it feels like the world's just gone helter-skelter. So if you can imagine having your senses and whatever's happening neurologically leave you feeling like you have no idea where you are or what's happening. It's like, that's really scary. You're going to try to control every piece you can. What tends to happen in a lot of the ways groups work with autism is they try to tell the child, you don't need to control, as opposed to, You do need to control. They're not idiots. You absolutely need to control. But the control doesn't come from every little thing out here. It comes from this sense of ground. Oh, that's next. Oh, that's next. I had a child many years ago in one of my classes. He was a first grader. He was actually coming to me as a second grader, though we had him in first grade. He had spent all of first grade in the public school, chewing, so terrified, chewed his clothes every single day. His clothes were torn and soaked, his arm, when his mom picked him up. And they had done the evaluations, and they said, yes, he's on the spectrum. We're not sure exactly where yet, but he's definitely autistic. And she said, no, we're going to see what else is possible. And they brought him to my school. And we always have a very steady rhythm, but because of his struggles, we added even more punctuation marks and more of what we're about to talk about, sensory integration movement. He stopped the biting the arm within the first week. Just no more shirt problems, no more biting his arm. He knew where the anchor points were that fast. Within, I think it was at the 6-week mark, I was starting a movement that would have been our transition into the beginning of the day. And I started the movement and he said the wrong verse. And then he burst out laughing. He had made a joke, knowing the rhythm so well in just 6 weeks that he could make a joke about what comes next. And so we all laughed, and then we did the right thing. But that's an example. And I will tell you, the sad story is, for financial reasons, our school closed at the end of the year. And just before the end of the year, the school sent the same, they're not called evaluators. What are they called? The people who come and do the testing. I forgot what they're called now. We'll call them the testers. The same person who screens to see how he's doing. And she said, I would not know this was the same child. I can see that he's working with some struggles. I would never have put him on the spectrum. That's after a year. He went back to public school with all the chaos. And in 1 month, he was back in the class for the severely autistic children. So that's how, and I will, to my dying day, tell you, it was the stability of rhythm that let him relax enough not to be fighting every step. So rhythm, number one. Number two, when the children, and it's so hard for me because this is true for all people, it's just more extreme if you're on the spectrum. When your sensory system is unable to put together the messages you're getting, you are going to go into fight or flight. All of us are going to go into fight or flight. So if I put you, and this is something I do with the trainees in the Enki Teacher Education program, if I put you in a room where I'm baking chocolate chip cookies and everything seems fine, and I bring in the roar of a subway and clanging things and shake the floor, and then bring in overcooked broccoli, and now I ask you to add 42 and 36. You're not going to be able to do it either. Your sensory system is going to be going on to panic. Have you all had experiences where you felt your sensory system go into panic? You're just too much coming at you. Does that ring a bell?
Yes, so it does.
I couldn't hear that.
Yes, I said it is very true, very true. I have gone through that.
Great. Just let me see a show of human hands. Does it ring a bell to people that your sensory system goes on overload? You know what that feels like? Who knows what it feels like? Okay, we got a couple.
I do, shall I say?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I do remember my childhood days when we used to go to a place where it is very crowded. I mean, extremely crowded. I used to faint, literally faint there, then and there. And I never understood it. I understood it only when my daughter got diagnosed, and I understood about all these sensory issues and all. Then I came to know, okay, I had something in me which was like sensory overload, wherein I couldn't even hold my senses, and I used to faint in crowded areas.
And
So that
with
is
what we've
something.
been talking about with fight, flight, freeze, where was she going?
I would
Right
say
into
it
the
was
freeze.
like,
So
maybe
you
it was,
go ahead.
I'm not able to choose it now. Like I cannot choose it, but when I feel it, I feel like I was not able to take it in itself, like the crowd and the kind of closeness. I couldn't take it. My body couldn't hold it.
And so you would faint. So
Yes,
this
yes.
is a fabulous example, because even though it happened in the tiniest fast moment, her nervous system first wanted to fight or flee, and she knew she couldn't. So she went boom, all the way into freeze, and faint is the bottom line of freeze. So when you absolutely cannot get yourself to safety through fight or flight, boom, you're going to go down. You're going to either glaze over, disconnect, go numb, far end, you're going to faint. So that's a great example of the nervous system went onto alarm and shut down. Boom, I'm out of here, not safe.
Okay.
I'm going to encourage all of you, because it will help you in working with your children. Just as you go through your day, notice the moments where you start feeling yourself want to withdraw, want to fight, want to run. Look around at what's happening in your sensory world, because we all still have it. If you're in a room where a noise is buzzing constantly, or there's an endless tapping, or whatever it is for you that makes it really difficult, it might be sound, might be smell, might be light, but it's going to be a sensory overload. So, Indu, you had something?
Yeah, I wanted to share an experience that I had with my son. So it happened that he was going to school. Everything was okay for the first 2 weeks. Then suddenly, I always used to accompany him to see his reaction. As for 1 month, the school allowed me to be in the classroom. So what happened was that one day suddenly, like all the children started singing together, and then in the middle of it, power also went. And that auditory trigger was too much for him, that he immediately started panicky and started running up and down the classroom. And because I witnessed it, I understood that it was an auditory trigger. But the teacher, who was not much experienced with sensory integration issues, couldn't identify the behavior. Now I had to take him out of the classroom, and he preferred to go to the swing. He wanted to swing for a very long time, and the behavior continued even at home, in the sense that he didn't want to come inside home. We have a swing at home. He just wants to go on the swing, or he wants to go on a car ride. Everything which was vestibulary sensory things he was seeking. And we had a very tough, almost 72 hours, with a lot of even between his sleep, he'll get up and kind of that much of it appeared very normal to me and to everybody else, children singing together. But the trigger was so severe for him that he couldn't take it. So I understand that their sensory system is so fragile that we have to continuously watch as to what triggers it, and
Yep.
what yeah.
That's a great description, and he's really lucky to have you for a mom. Think that most of the kids, when that happens, then they're in trouble. I mean, my goodness, their sensory systems already beating them up, and now they're in trouble. So he's really fortunate that he had someone who understood to hold that for him. It just breaks my heart, because I have to tell you, there are literally millions of children on and off the spectrum who are experiencing this very thing. Their system is going into panic, and it's worse and worse with all of the environmental and electromagnetic stuff around us. Their system goes into panic. They're doing their best to get the help they need, and they're punished. I just, can't bear it. So those are great examples. what they point to is that if the system is on overload, and this is true for everybody, if your system is on overload, you're going to go into panic. And we got both directions. We've got the fight or flight, and we've got the freeze. You guys covered it all. That is how we're built. That's our safety mechanism for survival. There's nothing wrong with it. The issue is, what can we do to help that sensory system literally integrate the information coming in? So right this moment, you're integrating all kinds of information, and you know you're safe. So there's sounds around you no matter what. There are smells, there are things coming through the air, there are colors, there's movement. You also are all on the computer, so you're all getting electromagnetic stimulation. Your nervous system is able to put that together to integrate. And you know you're safe, and you know what you want to pay attention to. If suddenly in your house the fire alarm went off, your attention would all go there. That's the correct response. Now, if you're a child who's struggling with this, and I personally believe that all children on the spectrum are struggling with this. They may have many other factors, but they all struggle with sensory integration. So if you're a child and you can't tell which of those things to pay attention to, every single one of them is like the fire alarm for you. So right now, something that the term I use is filtering. So people talk about attention deficit. I think it's actually attention overload. What the deficit is in the filtering. Right now, you are filtering out all kinds of sounds, sensations, stimulation to your nervous system through electromagnetics. You're filtering it all out to pay attention to me. So just take, 30 seconds right now. I'll be quiet. Oh, maybe I shouldn't be quiet. I'll be part of the problem. I'll keep talking, and just pay attention to all the sounds, smells, everything going on in your environment at once. Don't let them all be of equal importance. And I'm just going to keep chattering away while you do this, and I'll tell some story about my dog, and you guys pay attention to the sounds, just keep going and notice. And what about what's happening inside your body, and see if you can bring your attention to everything at once. How was that? Volunteers? Rama's laughing. Rama, how was it for you to try to pay attention to everything at once?
Not too bad right now, because it's a very quiet place. So, so it's not too difficult.
You cheated. Can anyone in
between the apartment in India?
Very difficult.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd like to say it's very difficult and very irritating, and just a matter of time before I snap at somebody, I scream louder. This is what, not just now, but when the TV is on, when the phone rings, and when the bell rings, my mind there's a traffic jam happening, and then I have to scream or throw something and then settle down, I understand my son better now, because as I get older, I can't tolerate noise anymore. Yeah.
And
my
that's
attention
a great
goes,
term.
and I have to snap and scream.
That's a great term that you used, a traffic jam. It's not just happening in your mind, it's happening in your whole nervous system. So if you can picture that the kids on the spectrum are largely living in that all the time. And then you wonder, so now the singing got too loud for Indu's son. Now the singing got too loud. And now he's, basically a Mack truck drove through the traffic jam. Of course he's going to explode. Or for Manju, she's already got the traffic jam going on, and now she's at the beach, and it's, somebody dropped a bomb and she faints. So one of the images I use that you might find useful in communicating with other people, you guys already know this instinctively. If we look at the child and we think of him as being a glass jar, like a quart-sized glass jar. If there was such a thing as the perfect human being, we'd come in completely empty. And any challenges that came to us, we'd have all that room to move in our empty jar. nobody comes in empty. So let's say your neurotypical child comes in about a third full. And that's all the things inside and outside that he's struggling with moment to moment. He still has 2/3 of a jar. So now the kids in the class are singing and it sounds funny and it's bothering him and he's agitated. He's got 2/3 of a jar to work with it before he goes over the top. The kids with significant sensory issues come in with a jar that's already 4/5 full. Then they're dealing with that all the time. Into that jar comes the last straw, the song in the classroom, and boom, out come all the beans. Yeah, explosion. Everybody wants to say he has no tolerance. Give me a break. He's carrying around 4/5 of a bean jar all the time. He has a higher tolerance than the kids who have this many beans in this much room. Do you see what I mean there?
Yes, yes.
I have used that image to help like grandparents, aunts and uncles understand when they're seeing the child, because they want to say, where is his flexibility? Where is his tolerance? His tolerance is so much higher than yours or anybody else in this room. Give me a break. So, sorry, it's a pet peeve of mine. It makes me crazy. What we want to do is help lower the bean count so they have more room to maneuver through things without hitting panic, either fight or flight or faint. The most effective way I know to do that is first through rhythm, and then in the rhythm, movement work that integrates. Not all movement work integrates. So a big piece of what we study in Enki is sensory integration. How does it work? How can you integrate it through your day? So the little boy I told you about, where it was very fast for him to stop panicking, part of that strong rhythm, part of it was that our rhythm, without a child with that kind of need, we would have had a big morning physical activity and then more focused stuff and then recess. And then we come back in. But I put what we call the SI challenge, didn't mean anything to them, sensory integration challenge, where before they came in from recess, they had to run a particular course that was set up to integrate the senses. So I think we did that 3 times a day. I think that's part of why he could trust the space so quickly. So we're looking to work with specific types of activities that integrate. So the word integrate, what it means is that when this sound is coming in, I can interpret it, know I'm safe, and tuck it away and let the next thing come in, as opposed to they're all equally demanding my attention and I can't make sense of them from there. So I think you guys are basically familiar with sensory integration, right? Yeah? No? Okay, so I'm trying to think what the best way to go here. Let me recommend some things for you to read on sensory integration. Part of my hesitation is we're just rewriting the Enki Foundation guides, and they have a very big section on it, but they're not yet available. When they're available, you could just buy those. Should be somewhere in the next few months. What they focus on is, can't go too far here with this because it is a whole course and more. There are different parts, and Indu referred to the vestibular. So her child wants to go on a swing to calm. That's the vestibular system calming. Some children want to stomp, 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 stomp. That's the proprioceptive system calming. Some children want to touch. Some children want nothing to do with touch. So those are your 3 core systems, and those 3 have to be working and working together for sensory integration to happen. And it's more complicated than we can go into now. So for instance, Indu, when your son swings, does he swing for a while and then he's fine and he can go on to something else?
At least about 15 to 20 minutes of swinging, then he is okay. Like you can gradually guide him to something else. And when the anxiety is at its peak, he swings. He also walks a lot. He paces up and down, walks a lot, and he would love to go on car rides. So every time I feel he's seeking some kind of movement to calm himself down. So once that is done, he's kind of grounded. So initially, like after the initial insult, it was too bad that like he was doing that all the time. But then gradually, like that memories faded, and then now kind of. But even now, I feel that when he is like stressed out, he would immediately want to bring in some kind of movement, either walking or going on a swing.
So on the whole, the walking is going to be proprioceptive, muscles and joints, but not only, because vestibular is your relationship to gravity. So when you walk, you're always bringing in your relationship to gravity. So he may be using the walk. You can't tell this quickly, but you could have a child who, let's say Indu's response was, he's fine when he's on the swing, but he has to swing for an hour and a half. And whenever he gets off, he has a fit. That'd be called vestibular seeking. But what that would mean is that the vestibular is calming him, but it's not integrating. Because if it's integrating, he's going to come off flexible in a reasonable space of time. So that's what you're looking for. Children who like to, try to think things, jump a lot, trampoline, jump on the ground, march. So he may be doing vestibular there. Lift things, push them, even throw. If you have a child who's prone to throwing, instead of thinking he's bad, think he's seeking proprioceptive information. And then you want to give him something to push against. Maybe you want to play a pushing game. But what I can mostly do in our little time here is to kind of lay the ground. So you're going to want to look at, it's so hard for me because I just want to tell you, okay, have the books when they're not ready. I'll let you know when the books are. Rama will let you know when the books are ready, because they give you more detail than we can do now. But what you're going to want to look at is, what is the need being expressed? Does he need more of the vestibular spinning or swinging? Does he need more of the boom, 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 boom? Does he need more of the touch? Boy, it's hard for me to control myself, but I know you're going to see a lot of this, so I'm going to name it. So a lot of kids are disturbed by this touch, light touch. That's touch. If you're doing this and it's grounding to the child, that's proprioception. There you're giving the information about pressure. So proprioception is pressure to the muscles and joints. It tells you how you're moving through space. So this is proprioceptive. Many kids are calm by the proprioceptive, but totally off their rockers with a very common thing in sensory integration therapy, which I totally object to, is the brushing. The brushing is made to desensitize touch. That may come in down the road as an important thing, but before desensitizing, we want to try to integrate. So touch is integrated when vestibular and proprioceptive are integrated. So I'd say ignore the touch problems and just work with the others and see if it changes. If it doesn't change eventually, then sure, desensitize. But we don't really want to desensitize them, right? We want them to be able to be fully who they are in a way that isn't frightening. Nobody does that 100%. So I can promise you all, every single person has some way they desensitize. How about adults who sit doing this? Or one of the favorite ones with men is shake that foot. How many of you have sat with a man who's shaking his foot? I don't know why it's men more than women, but men have a tendency to shake their foot. We have 1,000 ways we desensitize. Great, but let's not start with the children at desensitization. Let's start with integration and see how far we can get. And then we desensitize where we have to. So what we're looking for in terms of the content of those blocks are making sure you have enough movement. And for now, just explore that movement with curiosity. Is my child constantly spinning in circles, or this is a vestibular? Even though it doesn't look like it, it is. You see what happens to your balance when you do that? So if the vestibular is what they're seeking, try big swinging, but also vestibular is grounded by proprioception. Try hopping around, big muscle, pushing. All I can do in this time is kind of give you markers. I think one of the biggest ones is children who are pushing or throwing, and we want to label them bad, and then I want to kill you for labeling them bad. What they're telling you is they can't get the information they need in their muscles and joints. That's when the hot dog roll, put them in a blanket really tight, singing a song, that's something you can try. You want to give the information instead of tell them not to need it. So I can tell you on this one, I have my oldest grandson who graduates from high school next week and will be coming to the UK to go to college. And he's going to do a gap year first, and then he's going to go to University College of London. He just was over there visiting. But he's one, I think I might have mentioned this last time. He has a very severe autoimmune illness. And as an infant, not even infant, toddler, it overtook his body. Western medicine was able to get him back with us, but it was extremely severe. In the illness, he has the brainstem is attacked by the immune system. So you lose proprioception. He couldn't tell where he was in space. And we can still tell when a flare-up is coming because you'll see him whacking the walls. As a little one, and the other little ones who have it, they labeled the kids angry and rageful. The only person in the place that was rageful was me. I was ready to kill them. Those little people were seeking proprioceptive information they could not get. So then you give them that proprioception, and back they come. So for a while, just watch your children. Are they mostly doing a lot of spinning and it calms them? Are they, or swinging and it calms them? Are they mostly pushing and shoving and stamping? What's happening for them, and how can you do that in a way that empowers? So in your movement work, let's say we have a younger Ananth, and he isn't to where just a walk will do it, that he's still not settled. But Rama can see, oh, there's something happening here he needs. So maybe part of their walk is a verse where you're jumping like a frog. Frogs at the pond, and full body, really getting the hips and the knees and the thighs. So you're looking for ways to bring the movement into a constructive, I don't want to say controlled because I hate that word, structured, into a constructive, structured form that works for everybody, but where they're getting what they need. And part of what one of you said, I think Indu said this, over time, they don't need as much. So over time, that swinging, or when you get the right stuff, the swinging or the stamping, the system will start to integrate and be able to hold its own. None of us just hold our own. We all need movement through our entire lives. We all need movement. I can tell you that for the last 6 weeks, I pulled a tendon in my arm. So I'm very limited at what I can do. And I am such a grouch, so grouchy. I'd be happy to faint, but I'm just grouchy. I need to be active to be grounded and integrated. So very small noises now are disturbing to me. All people need movement to ground. Even if you're in a wheelchair, you need movement to ground. So it's not just the kids, but they'll get to a point where it's more in the socially workable context that they've integrated.
Beth, I had a question. I don't know how much more time you have. Could you touch upon the art part of it? 'Cause
Okay,
I'm
we're
really-
going to go. That's next on my list. Look, Rama, it's right there. The next on my list is arts. So that's the movement part. We talked about this polyvagal, the connected engagement system. Movement has a huge effect. Nature has a huge effect. The arts have a huge effect. So the arts are going to help bring that fight or flight system back into balance, we could call it back online. But the arts are also in and of themselves the language of childhood. No matter where you are on any spectrum you can come up with, they are the language of childhood. They're what the child speaks in. So whether it's arranging things in the kitchen floor or drawing or any kind of art, dance, movement, music, any art, that's the language. Well, notice the word art and heart have the same base there. It's the language of the heart center. So if in the course of the day, you're not including any heart, you're also left out. You're not including any art, you also left out heart. So think in terms of let the art be rhythmically included in your day. In Enki, we actually teach the academics through the arts. So Rama's very familiar with that. We'll bring the children, whatever concept we're trying to get to, we're going to bring it through movement, music, and art first. So it's already connected up inside before we ask it to be a concept outside. So I'll give you an example. When they're ready, and for a neurotypical child, this would be second grade, but it could be any time. It has to be when they're ready. They hit a point where they're stable enough that they begin to explore naughtiness. And you suddenly notice my sweet little child, cooperative child, is naughty all over the place. Little trickery, playing jokes, all those kinds of things. Trying to think of examples. When that's in a playful place, they're telling you that they're ready to look at the relationship between chaos and order. So things can become totally chaotic and brought back to order. Now, for a child on the spectrum, that usually happens a little bit later because chaos is terrifying for them. But when they're ready and the chaos is actually fun and funny, and then they seek order, that's when we bring in the study of place value, tens, ones, tens, hundreds. Yeah, you with me in math? Everybody with me on place value there? Do I need to say more about what it is?
Yes,
I'm going to say more. I see those faces. So in fact, India was one of the first places in which this system of counting was used. You take for granted that here's the number 1. 1, 0 is 10. So it's one group of 10. 1, 0, 0 is one group of 100. Yes? That's place value. So you get to 9 and now we have 1. That's place value. So in India, they were already using place value at the time when the Italian Fibonacci came over and brought place value to Rome. It was very late. It wasn't until I think he's 1300s. Before that, they did not have place value. So they didn't have 1, 0 as 10. All the numbers just kept counting. There were no groupings of numbers. So he kind of blew the minds of the Italians. And that was the beginning of Westerners using it. And in India, in the Middle East, in China, it had been being used forever. So it's a little bit funny. Sorry, I think that's really funny. But for the children, at first, they even one-to-one counting, they're going 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, 9, right? They don't have any sense of matching 1, 2, 3. So that's the first step. The second step is grouping tens, ones, tens, hundreds, thousands. So that's place value. But what it's doing is it's taking complete chaos like Europe, taking the chaos of Europe and putting it into the order of India. You can think of it that way. So when the children are ready, which has to mean they find it playful to be out where it's a mess and bring it back to order. I'm going to show you a picture. We begin by telling them a story of a fellow called Tricky Mischief. And we tell the story of Tricky Mischief, and he can't figure out, and the town's going to lose their kingship because he can't count all the jewels because he keeps throwing the jewels up in piles. I'm going to show you with pictures. That'll make it easier. These I have in order. Ignore the messy desktop. I can't manage that. So you're going to get my messy desktop. There it is. Very messy. And let me find. Now you can be impressed with my order. That chaos just went to order. Place value. Let's see if I can find the, I have to put these in proper order and then we'll see it. Where's my Tricky Mischief? I thought it would be marked as Tricky Mischief and it's not. Well, I can't believe it. Nope, didn't look out there. We're going to just see a moment if I'm lucky. Am I in second grade? Grade 2, yes. Okay, so I can't do it as thorough. I thought I was going to really impress you guys, but I didn't. Somewhere in here, that's a later one. There he is. Okay. That's Tricky Mischief. You see the chaos? Yeah. When the kids are ready, this is their very favorite picture. They just colors everywhere. So he's throwing jewels in the air because he can't count. He can't get the counting right. And then the story brings them to where he figures out how to put them in boxes. So there he is boxing them up. Yeah. So it's so far we're all in story and art and activity. Let me just see here. Oh, no, that's already. Here's that grandson I was telling you about long, long ago. Where is he out in the field? Okay, well, we're going to just show you in between. Ah, there we go. So this is not my grandson. This is his friend who was with us. They collected all the, in effect, acorns, tree seeds they could find. Theirs were stickery ones, thousands of them. Then we went through the neighborhood and had people guess how many we had. And we told them they would get a treat if they won. So we took a lottery in the neighborhood. Then we came home, went through all the story stuff, but in between those sticker balls, let me just see if we come upon them. The sticker ball, see them there up in this corner? There was a period where these were all over the floor of my living room. Let's talk chaos. Nobody could go anywhere. Then through the story, they began to sort them and they sorted them. See, okay, that one's my grandson who's now 18. So they sorted them by tens. Now the tens are going to go to hundreds. There they are in tens, hundreds, and the big boxes over here are thousands. They're just doing an activity, bringing that unbelievable chaos to order. And they wanted it to be ordered. They really were unhappy. After the first, it's so much fun to have the living room in a mess. It's not so much fun. You can't even walk. So they were eager to get them all boxed up. Only when that was completed, there they are, almost done. Yeah, he's laying them out. Then I said to them, so can you read your boxes? How many do you have? And it took them a minute, but they realized what they had and they could read whatever the number was. So we went from that. That's the big one. Yeah. We went from there. So you see how now it's in order? And then we brought it, got to find the right ones now. That's the two of them working on it. Now, let me go back a step here so I can find. Do I know how you get out of this? Yes. So I'm here. Okay. It comes around to here. So all this art and activity is happening as this is the bridge to bring it to paper before they're ever dealing with, I don't have it in the paper. Well, after that, we bring it to the regular way you would normally see the math written up. But there's a long process in the academics of going from art, from story, it's almost always story, movement, art, activity to concept. And that's for all children because that's how they think. That was just one second, Robin. That was kind of the big picture. You would be talking about just taking small bits. You're out on a nature walk. Maybe you draw something after, and you just let your child draw beside you. The tree you walked by, the river you walked by, and they're just drawing beside you or painting beside you. Rama.
Just wanted to mention, this was a great example because it's hard to explain in a short way because this was many years back and I don't have pictures or photos to explain. What I don't like being in videos and I never took photos. So it's a little bit hard to communicate what exactly we used to do. But I think that's very helpful. So they get a glimpse of it. I still remember Dominic Divide and the whole cast of characters who used to do all the verses. We used to actually do them on the walk. And, you know, the story and the art and the movement. So I think that's really was a good flow to the day because of that.
Oh, good. So she made it make sense for us. But I think I want to, by way of ending, I want to come back to where Manju started. Small. Don't forget the tiniest seed is what sprouts into a tree. You've got to start with tiny seeds or you kick that overwhelm in. And as soon as you kick the overwhelm in, we're back in fight or flight freeze. There isn't any way around it. It's how we're made. So if somebody said to you, I'm going to try an experiment, see how my child does with no food or drink for 3 days. You'd say, that's crazy. That's not how he's made. Same with the nervous system. If we overwhelm it, it does fight, flight, freeze. It has no choice. So little tiny pieces, they grow into a mighty tree. That's what seeds do. Seeds came to this world to teach us this fact. So, you know, you can do it even somewhat if you get your rhythm down and you get your movement in there and just be creative. You get your movement in, you watch what do they need. And so this day you were out for a walk and you came back and you drew a picture or you just put out crayons and paints and see what happens. You don't have to do the whole 9 yards as a starting point. So any closing comments or questions?
I do have a comment on the, especially about the movement. I remember in the starting of the journey with my daughter, after she got diagnosed, she used to run the whole day. I mean, I could rarely see her sitting in one place and doing something. She was always on the run. And gradually, slowly, she started sitting with the, I mean, whatever we did together, all mostly it was child-led, but still it was too good for us. I mean, the improvement was too good for her. So slowly, when she improved, now when I see back, now when she is 8 years old, she still runs. It has not completely gone, but she still runs. Her habit is like she will run from one wall to another wall, and she will keep her hand like this on the wall. That kind of pressure she will give to the hands. She'll run from one wall to the other wall. She has improved like anything. She's totally expressive now, which she was not before. And the running, it has reduced. I mean, it has gone. You told that it will not remain like that always. It will keep reducing when they grow up. And I can give you a live example, like the way she used to run. At least, I mean, I don't have a count, but the whole day, half the day she used to run. And now she is running like, I would say, the whole day, 4 to 5 times she will run like this. So it has come down so much. And the improvement is happening. I did not work on the deficits. I did not put a lot of tension on why she is running, why it is happening. I did not think about that too much. But I kept on helping her, supporting her. And she is right now, she was able to express beautifully, talk to you. I mean, that is something was a dream for me. dream for me. It was a dream.
It was fantastic. It was really fantastic. And I think that's one of the things as mothers, keep coming back to your instinct. You know, like you learn to tell your instinct from your fear, because your instinct told you, let her run. Imagine she probably would have been very, people would have perceived it as angry. She would have been terrified and pushing every which way because she needed that running. And as you begin to look more and more deeply, you might see, oh, she's doing all that running. Let's have her hop in the middle and see if it helps her integrate. But not by interrupting, by going with and building. So that's a great example, and great job. She seems like a delightful little girl.
Hello, ma'am. Hello.
Yep. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. My 15-year-old son, I see that he is very fearful. Like for everything, he's scared. Even if he wants something, like if he wants a mobile, then I can see the fear in his face while asking, like whether she'll give me or she won't, or she'll shout at me. So I feel that everywhere, whatever I teach him or whatever he's trying to learn, the fear is the thing, like, you know, because of that, that is what I mean to say is I'm not able to go further. Every time I feel that it's a hurdle, that fear of his inside is a hurdle for learning beyond. So
he's older, right? He's the one who's how
15.
old? 15.
He's 15, yeah.
I think that the tiny increments is the important part, because you're right. If he's scared, he can't get over that hurdle. You know, not knowing exactly what level he's working at inside, it's hard for me to say, here's a step, here's a step. I think the main thing I can offer is you're already seeing when the fear kicks in. So if you can, before the fear kicks in, and it might be so tiny, you think it's so tiny, but it's huge. Before the fear kicks in, get up and walk or whatever calms him. Don't wait till the fear hits. I think you're very sensitive from everything you've said. So I think if you look to your own sensations, you'll pick up, uh-oh, it's coming. Your alarm's coming. Before it comes, don't wait for it to come. When it's coming, do whatever it is. If it's drawing, if it's going for a walk, if it's getting something to eat, just keep letting him know. I'm trying to think how far I can go with this. So there's a whole approach to healing, emotional, mental health, where part of what they're saying is when we push, all we do is reactivate fight or flight, and that's trauma. That all we're doing is keep recreating trauma. What we have to do is come within sight of the difficult and back off to the safe. And every time you do that, you're going to get a little bit closer, but it's in small increments. So really small increments, figure out what is the safe for him so that he knows he's going to continually, here comes that anxiety, I'm going to continually go to safe at that point. There was a long period of history where people thought when you go toward what's difficult, you feel the anxiety, push through. And there certainly are places where when you're making the choice to push through, it can be very healthy. When you're being pushed through, it's never healthy. So first you have to know, I can see the danger and I can go back. So I would look for what is it that really calms him and makes him feel safe? Even if that's a candy, we don't care what it is. Whatever it is, let's establish with him, oh, you're getting nearer to that. Let me give you your safety. Because he's 15, I would not do this much younger, but at 15, I would tend to put small words on it, very small. Like you start feeling the anxiety and you say, too hard, let's have this. And that's it, just too hard. And you hand him whatever, or you go out for a walk, just so he begins to label, this sensation means I need a walk. This sensation means I need a candy bar, whatever it is. I'm throwing in candy bar because I want you to see that it's really an open plane. Whatever at this time causes him to feel safe gets brought to him very quickly. Or he gets taken on, whatever it is. And there will come a time when just being willing to stand with him and help you be the wall that lets him go into the danger, that time will come. But you need first a ground where he knows you know how to get back to safe. That help?
Yeah, I'll try with him today onwards. Let's see how it works for him. Even if I look at him, then he'll think, oh, I did something wrong. That's why she's looking at me. I think when he was very small, maybe I punished him few times, like when he was out of control. He used to be very hyper when he was 8 or 10 years old. He used to hit us so hard, like, I couldn't control him. So I used to punish him. Sometimes I used to tie his hands because he's very skinny. So his bones used to hurt a lot. So I used to tie his hands or sometimes legs when he used to kick me and all that. So that fear psychosis is there in his mind that if I've done something wrong, that's why she's looking at me. Like that. Every time I see fear in his eyes.
Well, first of all, thank you for having the courage to share that with us. It's a very hard thing when the kids are physically violent. And I can tell you the grandson I was talking about went through 2 years where he was physically violent and he had to be strapped into a car seat that was bolted to the floor because it was too dangerous for everybody. And he will for all of his life fear being held down. But we don't always have all the choices in the world. When they're doing those things that are dangerous to themselves and others, you do what you have to do. And then exactly what you're doing, you have the courage to look at it and you see, where can I build bridges back? So one thing I just want to say, this is true again for all children when they're young. The children on the spectrum hold it longer. Eye contact is threatening. So don't look for eye contact. That business of teach them to have eye contact, forget it. Eye contact needs to be an expression of I am secure enough that I want to look at you. Otherwise, they're going into freeze. They're pulling back from their eyes and glazing over and performing. Helps nobody. Don't look at him. Get next to him, sit next to him, both of you facing forward. So you feel the energy coming where it's about to get difficult. You sit next to him, both of you are facing forward, and you say, tough time, back to a walk. That's it. No understanding, nothing. He can't understand anything in that place. You got to get him back to where he can trust. Okay, we're going. Okay, it's met. Okay, the need's met. Okay, the need's met. Ah, what's happening here? You see what I mean? And I think you don't have these trees there, sequoia trees. I think they're only in California, but they're these ancient giants. They live, some of them have been around since supposedly Moses parted the sea, 3,000 years before the Buddha. Same tree standing there, huge. Their diameter, 35 feet, bigger than a house, 240 to 300 feet tall. The seeds in their pine cones are this big. The pine cone is like this. There are all these giant pine cones you think are the seeds for that. No, their pine cone is this big. The seed is like that. So I always remember that tiniest seed, give it time. Now, he's unlikely to live 3,000 years, but I think you can give it little increments now. Okay, anything else before we go? Great. Well, it was wonderful to meet you guys. I will let you know when the books are released again so you can get kind of a bigger picture. Hopefully it'll be over the summer. And Ram, it was great to reconnect and keep me posted on how things are going, okay?
Thanks, Beth. Appreciate it very much because I think we brought in the stress, anxiety, and tying that into learning, all of that into a discussion. So we'll have the recording and we appreciate it very much. Thank you.
Wonderful. Best to all of you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Rama.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Bye-bye. Best.
Bye.